All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the WNR Body Transformation Podcast. And first of all, thank you for listening. But before I just get started, right? Like today was one of those days, like where the urge to not work or just do anything was extremely high, right? I just wasn't in a good mood, right? And even though I wasn't feeling hungry and all of that, I was like, let me eat junk food and all of that, right? It's it's just stress eating, but I am really proud of the fact that I managed to overcome that. I mean, it's just getting stronger and stronger and stronger because I've been practicing the teachings of mindfulness, Buddhism, etc. I know you don't want to be hearing that. You're here to listen about the stuff that I'm going to be covering inside this podcast, in this video, later down the line. But before we just get started, right? Please feel free to like, share, subscribe, and also, like, how do I say this? Whatever I mention in this podcast is solely for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please don't do the dumb stuff that I suggest people do, right? Whatever you want to do, please do it at the guidance of your own expense, basically. Get it checked with a doctor, etc., before you get started with anything. But before we just get started, here's the disclaimer, right? But yes, I'm going to be looking at the side on the sides because I've got like 18 points that I need to be covering, right? But in today's podcast / video, I'm going to be covering like what you need to be considering before you start your first steroid cycle, or even like thinking about it, like be it bodybuilding, steroid cycle, or thinking about like DRT, etc., because you want to optimize the quality of your life. Like, so yeah, like let's probably get cracking, right? These are the things that I wish I knew, and I did a lot of them because I had a coach and I like researched for years, because as you can probably see, I'm wearing spectacles and I'm a nerd. But first of all, the first thing that you need to be considering before you first start your steroid cycle is, what's your age? Are you like 25, right? Later the better, because in the scientific community there's this rumor, like there's this debate going on, like the brain stops developing, the brain develops throughout your life because it's a very plastic, elastic structure, right? But like from childhood till adolescence, the development of the brain is quite sped up. But from 25 onwards, it begins to slow down, but it still continues throughout the rest of your life, right? But to a lot of people, right, I suggest, like, if you was going to be doing it, although I don't suggest it, but if you was going to be doing it, wait till you're 30. Literally wait till you're 30, basically. So, like, here are the things that, that slightly slow down in the development of the brain as and when you get older, which is like the prefrontal cortex, right? Now, the prefrontal cortex versus the amygdala. The amygdala is the part of the brain which is involved in feeding, fighting, fucking, more like animalistic behaviors, etc., which are like far more active through your teenage years, basically, like below 25 onwards and all of that. Whereas the prefrontal cortex is like the front part of the brain, which is involved in memory, learning, executive decision making, etc., etc. So the other thing is it's known as myelin. Myelin is more of like the sheath between the nerves in the brains, okay? But myelinogenesis, which is like the growth of the sheets, or the development of the sheets, basically, it tends to slightly, like, it happens throughout your life, but it tends to slightly slow down from 25 onwards. So this is like very pronounced from childhood till adolescence, teenage years, etc., but it tends to slow down. But anyways, what I'm trying to get at is how do I say this? Let me just pull up the notes, right? But let me just break it down, because I can't break it down in simple terms, right? So it's too scientific for you guys, but here you go. So here you go. What I am going to be saying. Right. So like basically it's like the protective sheets around the neurons, etc. Like as I mentioned, right? Now, like the transmission of signals between the nerves, etc., tends to get faster and faster and faster as and when you get older and older and older because you're still in that development stage. But you need to realize, like, if you start taking steroids from an early age onwards, it will cause brain inflammation. Like, there's tons of research that shows that steroids do reduce the IQ of the person. So, yes, you need to consider that. Synaptic plasticity. Now, what do I mean by plasticity? Neuroplasticity. The brain is a very elastic structure, so you can train yourself to write with the right hand, which activates the left hemisphere of the brain and the right hemisphere of the brain, which are involved in different aspects of learning, creativity, blah, 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 okay? Which I'm not going to be getting into, but what are synapses? It's more of like the gap between the neurons, okay? Like, so, like, this is a normal gap, and this is a large gap. The more plastic it is, the better things are going to be. And you can train your brain to learn fucking anything, basically. You can train yourself to learn anything. Now, in your adolescent years, in your teenage years, etc., or even in your early 20s, etc., most of the people out there are getting fucked up. Most of the people out there are chasing risky behaviors. Most of the people out there are abusing substances. Most of the people out there, like, sorry, I gotta stop saying most of the people, but in those years, right, as a stereotype, people have extremely irrational behaviors. So around that time, if you stack it up with steroids, like, it's a fucking recipe for disaster. And I've seen tons of people doing dumb shit, right? The other thing is, what's your body fat percentage, right? This is something that I've covered in the previous podcast as well. But the leaner, the better, because within your fat cells, you have aromatase cells or aromatase enzymes, right? But anyways, don't go as per cells or enzymes. But what is the aromatase activity? The main purpose of aromatase activity is to convert the testosterone that you produce to estrogen. So if you're at a high body fat percentage in the bodybuilding community, or even in the health and fitness community, right? Like, if you want to be optimizing the benefits of TRT or even steroids, you want to be as lean as possible because you don't want a lot of the testosterone to be converted to estrogen. Now, a lot of dudes have this stigma against estrogen, but estrogen is fucking amazing for you. It protects your brain, it's cardioprotective, etc. But anything beyond a certain point, it's going to cause side effects like gynecomastia, which is like puffy nipples, like male breast tissue. It's going to cause low libido. It's also going to cause feminine behaviors and all of that. So, yes, you want your testosterone to be as high as possible if you're taking TRT or even if you're taking bodybuilding doses. And depending on the genetics of the person, depending on how much of 5-alpha reductase enzyme that you produce. Now, you are going to be confused. What the fuck is 5-alpha reductase? 5-alpha reductase is an enzyme that converts the testosterone that you produce to dihydrotestosterone, which is involved in a lot of masculine traits, right? Deepening of the voice, pubic hair growth, right? It peaks during puberty, deepening of the voice, hardening of the bones, like pulling in water inside the muscles. You must have noticed, right? During your teenage years, everyone must have gone like, oh, you must have seen me back in the day, right? I used to be like really, really fit. So, like, you want to be producing a certain amount of estrogen, but anything beyond a certain point, right, it's going to be detrimental. And people at a high body fat percentage, and which is anything beyond 12%, and if you start taking steroids around that percentage, fuck me, like, it's not a good idea. So you need to consider that. The other thing is, what's your training age, right? Now, biological age is far more different than training age. So have you been training progressively, which means, like, have you been progressing your lifts, tracking your lifts, being in a caloric surplus, going through multiple cutting and bulking phases, right? By bulking, I mean, like, not making the mistake that I did, which is becoming a fat fuck, right, under the concept of bulking, but lean bulking to resensitize yourself so that you can begin to use food for fuel. Or also, like, how do I say this? Like, going through, like, cutting phases, like, that's cutting phase, but going through, like, Lean bulking phase is so that you accumulate muscle tissue without gaining body fat. But a lot of guys get this wrong, right? How many bulking cutting phases that you done? Like, have you done this naturally? And have you been tracking your lifts inside the gym? Have you been training consistently 4 to 6 times per week? Are you training properly? Are you training hard? Are you tracking your lifts? Are you in a caloric surplus? You got to do this at least for the next 10 years. At least for the next 10 years. This is something that I didn't miss. I didn't do properly. I mean, I was tracking my weights and reps. I was good at cutting. But this is the first time that I am actually doing a caloric surplus properly, because I'm doing it under the guidance of a coach. And in the past, I made a lot of mistakes, but this time I'm doing things differently. But yeah, this is my lean bulking phase, and the more food that I'm adding, yeah, it's like I'm getting leaner and I'm getting more bigger at the same time. Yes, I am taking 300 mg of test, but that's still a baby dose in the bodybuilding community. But all I'm trying to get at is you need to do this naturally for the next 10 years. And your ability to put on muscle tissue and be in a calorie surplus without accumulating body fat is only going to be pronounced when you get as lean as possible, which to a lot of men, I go like, get down to 7 to 8% and bulk within something like 7 to 15% with a moderate caloric surplus, and do this for the next 10 years. So yeah, you need to consider that as well. And then you get the benefit of taking the least amount of steroids, which should always be a goal, to get the most amount of muscle. That should always be the goal. And no, steroids don't actually help you drop body fat, right? They just increase your muscle tissue. So yeah, that's what I'm going to say. There are far better compounds to drop body fat, which is a topic that I'm going to be covering later, okay? The other thing is, how's your diet like? This is something that I can't stress the importance on, right? Are you tracking your calories and macros? Do you know what's protein? Do you know what's carbohydrates? Do you know what's fats? Do you know the macronutrients? Are you eating healthy? Are you eating like animal protein, like, which gives you a lot of micronutrients? Are you eating like 1 kilo of vegetables and fruits combined together? I'm going to say vegetables because a lot of people are good at eating fruits, but they don't fucking eat their vegetables. So you want like at least 1 kilo of fruits and vegetables combined together, right? That's going to like literally provide a high inflammatory profile, high nutrient profile. Are you eating organ meats, right? That's going to save you the cost of fucking multivitamin, although you still need to supplement with the multivitamin, which is something that I'm going to be covering later. What else? Are you eating whole grains? Like your carbohydrates, do they come from like fucking, how do I say this? Gummy bears, or do you eat like sweet potato, white potato, oats? Things like that, right? You got to be eating healthy. You can't outdo all of this, right? What's your fat intake like? Like, are you eating quality fats? Are you eating like fats which are high in omega-3s? If not, are you supplementing regularly with it? Are you getting in omega-6s, right? You're eating eggs. You need to consider all of that basically, right? Because if you do this, if you take steroids, then the effects of the steroids will be, the positive effects will be even more pronounced, and your internal health is going to be relatively safe. There's no safe way to do this, but it's going to be relatively safer. So yeah, that's something that I also preach to a lot of my clients. No, I don't put my clients on steroids, but I'm like, you gotta fucking eat this, right? The other thing is, what's your activity levels like? Like, so what do I mean by this is, I'm using the standing desk. Are you metabolically active? Most of the people don't have a slow metabolism. Are you hitting 8,000 to 10,000 steps per day? Because that's going to reduce the chances of a lot of health diseases like diabetes, cholesterol, etc. I mean, obviously, because you're partitioning the nutrients from the food properly. It's not just simply floating around in your bloodstream. It's simply going to the right places as well, right? Because if you take steroids, right, this increases your risk for blood pressure, right? How do I say this? Because the harder you train, your heart expands, right? And when your heart expands, there's less space inside the heart, because of which the heart needs to work harder to push the blood out, to shuttle the nutrients in the other places of the body, right? So that's why you must have seen a lot of steroid users like tend to have high blood pressure and tend to die because of a heart attack. So simply being active, simply doing your cardio is something that you need to be considering as well. You can't fucking forget this, right? The other one is, what's your sleep like? Do you get in something like 7 to 9 hours of quality rest, right? Like, this is gonna get you to face the bare minimum side effect. It's the fucking basics, right? The other one is, what's your supplement intake like? Whether natural, whether not natural, you need to be supplementing with a good quality multivitamin, a good quality fish oil, zinc, magnesium glycinate, vitamin D3, regardless of the fact that you live in a sunny location or if you don't live in a sunny location. Sorry, my listeners are from Russia, one of my favorite countries in the world, after Vietnam. No, before Vietnam. Vietnam is my favorite country in the world. Moscow, yeah, that's fucking good. But anyways, let's not get off topic, right? You're taking like herbs and all of that. So these are some of the things that you need to be considering, right? What's your family history like? Do you have a series of health issues like blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, infertility, etc.? Now, genetically, my family has all the rich man diseases. What do I mean by this? They have, like my father and my mom, both of them have diabetes. Mom's rheumatoid activity is quite high inside her body, which is an autoimmune disease which causes like joint pain and all of that shit, right? My grandmom, diabetes, cholesterol, died of a heart attack. My dad is a heart patient, got like one heart attack. Touch wood, he's still alive. I spoke to him today. I love him. The other thing is infertility, etc. Right? So I'm going to be breaking down all of this one by one. If you're genetically predisposed to hypertension and you take steroids, like you really need to be on top of your shit. Like you really need to be on top of your shit, right? Regardless of the fact that you're not on top of your shit or you're on top of your shit, it does increase the risk of heart issues and it does increase the risk of hypertension. So yes, I explained previously how it does that. Like it causes the muscles of the heart to expand because you're training harder inside the gym. Blood pressure increases, yada yada yada. Cholesterol, right? Steroids do alter the HDL to LDL ratio. So that's something that you need to be considering as well. The other thing, so if you come from a family which has like high cholesterol markers, keep this in check, and your diet needs to be like a relatively low fat one with a high protein, high carb one. The other thing is infertility. Now this is genetic. Now a lot of people will go like, oh, if you take steroids, your balls are going to shut down, and which is technically true, and your testicles produce spermatozoa, good quality sperm, and when you're taking steroids, when you're taking testosterone, when you're supplementing from outside, exogenous testosterone, the endogenous, which is the internal testosterone, does shut down, right? But the sperm count doesn't completely reduce. Like in some people, it reduces completely, goes down to zero. In some people, it's still there. There's a highly genetic, but are you willing to risk infertility? Now, there are tons of bodybuilders who've gotten their wives pregnant, etc., while being on a heavy fucking steroid cycle. But this is highly genetic. So sometimes I see that my balls are like shrunk. Sometimes I see it's still hanging. I still produce sperm. But this is something that you need to be considering. And when you do come off a steroid cycle, you will go on something known as HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin hormone, which is going to get your balls to start functioning again. So this tends to get the fertility back in 90% of the men. But in a few unfortunate ones, they never get their fertility back. So this is something that you need to be considering as well before you start your first cycle. The other thing is, which is something that I already covered. Are you okay shutting down your fertility, basically, right? If not, wait till you get fucking kids, right? The other one is, are you okay with the side effects? Like hair loss, right? For someone like me, I always had a receding hairline, but testosterone, like if you inject testosterone, you're producing an abnormally high amount of testosterone, because of which a fair share of it might be converted to dihydrotestosterone, and depending on the genetics of your family, if your mother's side is bald, please have a look at your mother's side, right? Or if you started balding in your 30s and 40s, basically, right? It might increase the chances of hair loss. So if you're okay with that, I mean, yeah, fuck it, go ahead, basically, right? That's your personal choice, right? The other thing is potential gyno, which is probably going to be exacerbated genetics, depending on your body fat percentage, depending on how much estrogen and progesterone that you produce. But if you're lean, it's not going to be that much of a big issue. You're eating well, you're doing all the basics. So yeah, acne, right? You produce a lot of estrogen, it might increase the chance of acne, oily skin, etc. That's something, are you willing to do? The other one is, if you want the maximum benefits of the testosterone or the steroids that you're injecting, like, are you willing to inject anywhere between something like 3 to 7 times per week? So let's probably say I'm taking 300 milligrams of testosterone. I'm injecting something like 6 times per week, so 50 milligrams from Monday to Saturday. Because if you keep smaller yet more consistent doses given to your body, like, less of it is going to be converted to estrogen, less of it is going to be converted to dihydrotestosterone. As a result of it, the side effects would be relatively lesser. But in the medical community, they just give you one fucking big bolus dose of an injection right from the start, which is absolutely stupid. So yeah, what's your mental health like? I can't stress the importance of this basically, but if you're a shit person, right? If you're a fucking shit person, or if you have anger issues, etc., they're just going to be magnified. If you're calm, if you're introverted, you might become slightly extroverted, and you might become slightly more lovey-dovey. For example, someone like me, like in the first few weeks, I started getting angry or something like that. But then, as and when I realize it, I'm like, okay, I gotta focus on my mental health. It does have effects on your brain. It just magnifies the traits that you might or might not be proud of. Right? So yes, does your family and girlfriend know about this? Basically, this is something that you need to be communicating with them as well. My parents know about this. They're not proud of it, but yeah, whatever the hell it is. Yeah. The other one is, do you have access to a good quality source, right? Now, which means I'd always tell people, like, if you have access to a good quality source, be it an underground steroid lab or like a pharmaceutical grade, always go with the pharmaceutical grade, because they use carrier oils to produce that testosterone, which are like relatively natural and tolerated by most human beings, which is something that I'm not going to be covering right here. The other one is, are you hygienic? Because before you pin yourself, right, you want to be cleaning with an alcohol swab, and then after you pin yourself, you need to be cleaning yourself with an alcohol swab again, which is another pain in the ass, but hey, it's like a part of the process, right? Then the other one is which ester you have access to. Now, what do I mean by esters, right? There are different types of steroids. There are different types of testosterone. There's something like testosterone propionate, there's testosterone enanthate. So I always get this wrong, but so let me just wait. Yeah, so testosterone propionate basically. So testosterone propionate has got like a half-life of something like 2 to 3 days. So let's probably say if you take something like 50 milligrams, right, 2 to 3 days later, something like 25 milligrams is going to be floating around in your bloodstream, in your body, in your bloodstream, whatever you want to call it. So if you want to get in the required dose for the week, you might want to take it more frequently. Testosterone enanthate has got like a half-life of anywhere between something like 4 to 7 days, right? So you can either take it once at the start of the week or twice per week, the injection, split your weekly dose. But yeah, that's something that you need to be considering as well. I'd always suggest people, you got to be injecting at least three times per week, right? Split your weekly dose into 3 injections basically. The other one is testosterone cypionate. Testosterone cypionate has got a slightly longer half-life, 8 days, 7 to 8 days, 7 to 10 days, but it's give or take, right? The other one is testosterone undecanoate, right? This has got like a half-life of 4 weeks, 12 weeks basically, right? Well, let me just get, I might be wrong. Yeah, 12 weeks. Something like, yeah, it's got an effect of something like 1 month basically, which is something like 3 to 4 weeks. And yeah, so whatever dose you inject, like it's gonna be like relatively lesser half of it is going to be floating around in your bloodstream a month later. So yeah, they usually give that to lazy people. I never suggest that to people, but the medical community does do that. The last one is, so yeah, the battery died, but here we go. And the last one is testosterone, which has more got like a half-life of 1 to 3 weeks. It's a combination of 3 to 4 esters like testosterone propionate, which has more of like a half-life of something like 1 to 2 days, and it's a combination of testosterone phenylpropionate, I guess, basically, which has a half-life of something like 4 to 5 days. The other one is isocaprinate, which is a half-life of something like 6 to 8 days, and decanoate, which has a half-life of something like 15 days. When you combine different esters, it's going to alternate the half-life of the testosterone that you're injecting. So you need to also consider which ester you're taking. But to all the people out there, I'd probably go like, if anybody's doing it, if you don't want if you want to minimize the side effects, minimize the chances of it. Side effects are highly genetic, and it depends on your work ethic as well. Anywhere between 3 to 7 days, like, is something that I tell to people, depending on the ester as well. Can you afford regular blood work? If you trust me, blood work is more expensive than steroids. I can't stress the fucking importance of this, right? Once every 2 months, 2 months the better, or once every 3 months or 6 months. 6 months is like stretching it too far, but once every 3 months. So these are the things that you need to be considering before you start your first steroid cycle. The last one is TRT. So in the medical community, TRT is something like anywhere between 75 milligrams to 250 milligrams of testosterone given administered to the patient per week. 75 milligrams is like the fucking feminist dose. But bodybuilding territory is 200, 250 plus. Above onwards, yeah, that's what I'd probably say. You are technically not on TRT in anywhere above something like 200, 250 milligrams plus. But a lot of pharmaceutical vials, they come in 250 milligrams vials per week. No, ampules, not vials, right? The pharmaceutical grade never comes in ampules. Underground lab always comes in ampules. Well, the pharmaceutical grade does come in vials. The testosterone undecanoate, basically, yeah, Nibiru. The other one is, if you go on TRT, you might be going like, okay, I'm replacing my already existing amount with amount from outside. But you still get like a bit of an advantage because your hormone levels are going to be far more stable on TRT versus if you're like natural, it's going to like fluctuate throughout the day. So yeah, you still get like a bit of an advantage basically. So yeah, consider all of this before you start with your first cycle or before you go on TRT. People, if you found this useful, feel free to like, share, subscribe. And if you're interested in coaching, if you want to drop body fat, you want to build muscle, you want to get fit forever, all you need to do is fill in the application formula. Have a nice day.